Okay, so the topic of this video is brick stitch with a hint of ladder stitch thrown in. Ladder stitch is the foundation for brick stitch. So to begin, you need to pick up 2 beads, and when I say pick up, I don't mean physically pick them up. You can just point your needle at the hole of the bead. If the bead is standing vertically, then you just put your needle on the edge of the bead and it will roll over onto the needle. So we're going to start with 2 beads and leave yourself a long tail. I like to leave a long tail that I can hold on to, because there's not very much to hold on to with your beads when you start. Go back through both beads again, and then that second one will roll over and they will sit side by side. And then you pick up another bead and attach it to the previous bead. So if you were coming out of the bottom, you go in at the top, and then you need to come back through the bead you've just added. So each one is connected to the previous one. And once more, add a bead, come back through the new bead. And again, you'll notice, if you've watched the previous video, you'll notice that after every stitch I hold on to the thread so that I've got complete control over the beads. So it always goes over my finger, or I'm holding it on the other side. So for this purpose, I'm just going to use 5 beads as my base row. So that is your ladder stitch. To start your first row of brick stitch, we pick up 2 beads. Always, always, always 2 beads at the beginning. If you only pick up 1 bead, what happens is that you have a thread showing on the outside of the bead. So we always pick up 2, and then that thread is hidden. So this time, instead of going through the beads, you're going under the thread between the beads in your ladder stitch foundation, and you just need to tease them to make them sit in the right direction, and then just give it a little push when you've got through, and then it's a single bead for the rest of the row. So between the beads, under the thread, hold on to your thread and then back up the bead. Okay, and then again under the thread and then back up the bead. And each time I just give it a little push to make it sit in place. And there you have 2 rows of your brick stitch. So we'll just do one more. 2 beads on, under the thread, back up the bead, holding onto the thread with whichever finger happens to be available. Sometimes I do it with one hand, sometimes I do it with the other, and go back up the bead. Give it a little push, and every time you'll notice I'm putting that thread over my finger so that I've got control. And last one, under the thread, back up the bead, and just give it a little tweak. And there you have 3 rows of brick stitch, which looks remarkably like the peyote stitch that we did in the previous video. It behaves the same way. You can roll it in this direction, but it won't fold in that direction. You can also roll it and zip it like you did with the peyote one, so you just go through all the high beads and you've got a little tube, but that's your brick stitch. You can use a peyote chart, and all you do is turn it a quarter turn and you've got nice straight lines, and the pattern's easy to read because everything is in a straight line on brick stitch, and you can just see the entire bead on the next row, and that's how easy it is to use a brick stitch pattern. If you want to practice your brick stitch, check out our Beadworkers Guild Journal issue number 85. There are some lovely Alice in Wonderland brick stitch patterns for you to enjoy.